Downieville is a name familiar to mountain bikers all over the world. Best known as home to the Downieville Classic, it's also a tourist destination for those wanting to experience the famous Downieville Downhill, a 15-mile-long, 5,000-foot vertical drop through some wild terrain. Mountain bikers come from far and wide to the small town, grab a shuttle to the top, and ride the most famous and trafficked trails on tap. However, Downieville is just one town in the La Sierra, located in Northern California, and even this lone spot has much more to offer than its most beloved run. When each of the communities in the La Sierra is taken into account, you have a concentration of trails not easily matched. Much of the terrain found in the La Sierra, and specifically Downieville, can be a challenge to access. Hardy souls can load packs and take it on the chin for hours on end in the name of striking it rich with lesser known and ridden trails. Even those rugged individuals consider it a pilgrimage and view these rides as an accomplishment more than an act of fun. Shuttle services in the area can get you to a number of spots, but straying off the beaten path is still arduous. It was to this end that Santa Cruz Bicycles made the calculated launch of its first e-bike, the Heckler, in this very region. Its message and branding were clear. Use this e-bike to access trails not otherwise ridden. Vital staffers have often made the trip to the La Sierra and hold a deep affinity for this region. With our long-term test Heckler still in the garage, we hatched a plan in conjunction with Santa Cruz Bicycles and the Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship. The idea was straightforward. Let's explore the trails in the Downieville and Quincy area on e-bikes. Let's see what kind of adventure we can unearth, and let's share that information with our readership in the hopes that they are inspired to come here and make the most of what is on tap. Our crew started with Greg Williams and Henry O'Donnell of Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship, Garen Becker of Santa Cruz Bicycles, and Vital's Brad Howell. The crew went through a variety of plans and eventually landed on the following flight path. Day 1 would be a large ride that started and ended in Downieville. Day 2 would have us riding from the Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship headquarters in Quincy and into the lesser traveled trails of the Mount Huff Trail Network. Day 3 would be a mellower ride where we would just pedal the traditional Mount Huff loop that is so often shuttled. Our initial ride was by far the most ambitious.
Well, we're starting here in town. We'll ride First Divide, and then go past Empire Ranch, continue up Jeep Trail into the Empire Creek single track, and then climb that to the top where Empire connects in with Chimney Rock, right up here by Rattlesnake Peak. We'll ride across Chimney, and then continue out the double track again until we hit the new Calida Trail. Then we'll ride Calida all the way back to Hall's Ranch, ride Hall's back to 49.
And then Mountain Mule is going to meet us where?
Up at the Bee Tree, which is right up here by the Saddleback Lookout Tower, like this intersection.
We'll be riding a combination of historic routes as we go up to prehistoric, which is the Chimney Rock. Back in the Maidu and the Miwok use that route, and then a brand new trail that the trail crew built, Calida.
Okay.
So, good combination.
And then how many miles do you think total we're gonna hit?
We'll probably be close to 60.
Close to 60?
Yeah, because Calida by itself is 20. Yeah.
Okay. And then vert-wise?
From here. I won't know until the day's over.
Nice. That'll be fun. We'll keep track of it.
Yeah. It'll probably be close to 7, I think. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. 6 maybe.
60 miles, 7,000 feet of vert.
Yay. All right.
Yeah.
But we're on e-bikes.
Yeah, we're not on single speeds like Greg used to ride.
I have less issues now.
Sick. Let's do it.
All right.
All right.
Let's
Cool.
do it.
Let's go. With a big day lined out, we knew we would have to take advantage of Downieville Outfitters' Mountain Mule program with battery and food support.
Yeah, so we're working on a new service. It's called, it's part of our EBikes guide outfitter business, but it's called a Mountain Mule, and it basically helps you support e-bike rides, or, even gravel or mountain bike rides. But we have a vehicle that's equipped to be able to haul all your gear. And then if you're on an e-bike, you can book the service for the day and just try and go big. So yesterday we went up out of town. We did First Divide, up Empire, across Chimney Rock, and then where the Cal-Ida Trail started to pick up, our van met us with the Sierra Nevada beer chill zone, some food, a battery swap. So you're able to kind of like refresh yourself, refresh your bike, and then be able to continue on and complete like bigger rides that, you know, unless you want to carry all your own gear, like those batteries, I don't know, are probably 8 to 10 pounds on top of, you know, all of your other gear. So it's just a convenience and allows you to go a little bit deeper than what you might ordinarily be able to go. So
now that the logistics were in place, along with the proper support, it was time to set off on our ride, straight from downtown Downieville. Along the way up, our team stopped to learn about the history of these trails, something that can be easily missed otherwise.
We're about to ride up Empire Creek. How long has this one been around?
I think this is one of the original routes.
For miners with like those cool old prospecting axes and shit,
Yeah,
and mules.
back mules.
Got it.
Yep.
Up and over the summit.
This is how they got
A
there.
lot of meals, and yeah, it would just follow the Empire Creek drainage to the top, and then you go over into Sunnyside Meadows. From there you can get like onto the Plumas side real easy, into the Nelson Creek drainage. So yeah.
And these are all different mining spots where people were just posted up,
Yep.
trying to make money.
Yep.
Ugh.
Yeah, in the day there was like over 10,000 people living in the canyons, just staking claims and pulling nuggets and living hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Our summit of the Empire Trail brought a mixed feeling that we had accomplished a large task while being otherwise humbled by the enormity of our surroundings. Our Ridgeline experience was truly something special. With expansive ranges in all directions and striking rock formations, we had to soak it all in for fear of it evaporating from memory. Equally as humbling were the origins of this portion of our route. It was originally created by the first humans in this area. We were riding on the footpaths of ancient peoples. It is something special to lay tracks on a prehistoric trail. For the trail stewardship, e-bikes are changing access and granting more users these unique experiences.
Well, I mean, you know, like Downieville is like international mountain bike destination, so we don't want to, we want to keep adding to that. You know, people are already like used to catching shuttles and kind of traversing the ridge and then dropping 5,000 feet back to Downieville. Like, we still want to maintain that experience, but you know, you throw in like the e-bike and now, you know, you can just go farther. So maybe you would, you know, immediately go left, and now you go a couple drainages later across the ridgeline, and then you go left to Downieville. So it really just opens up a lot of opportunities and help spread the use out instead of everybody just riding the Downieville downhill. Like with e-bikes, we're really hoping people go explore places, you know, like Lavazola and Empire and Chimney Rock and Cal-Ida Trail, Hall's Ranch, trails that are pretty underutilized now, that are really fun on an e-bike.
Yeah. In addition to spreading out users on more trails, e-bikes have also become a method to gain user support and build even more new trails.
So, and then now, like with this new classification, well, basically like this method for the Forest Service to be able to reclassify trails to allow for Class 1 e-bikes, so that we, like a motorized designation, but Class 1 e-bikes only, which is you know, it's good because now there's a process for the Forest Service to decide if e-bikes are a good fit or not.
Yeah.
They still have to go through all the environmental work, the NEPA, you know, to make sure that it's a sound decision, and not every trail should probably be open to e-bikes. You know, it's more of these like remote backcountry routes, especially some of the existing routes that, you know, aren't open to e-bikes now, but they're also not used. And then they also don't have a funding source to maintain them. And they don't have like a trail stewardship group to really help maintain them. So I think part of the Class 1 and introducing the use on the trails that are already existing, that are more remote, allows you to create, you know, volunteers that want to come and take care of the trails, and opportunities to help sponsor maintenance for trails that otherwise like might not even be open or passable.
As we headed back into the forest, we were greeted by a much newer trail produced by the Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship. It was here that we met up with our support vehicle for a battery swap and some snacks. Next up was the Cal Ida Trail. As we watched time disappear, we realized that we would run out of daylight before we completed our goal. We knew that we would have to make the use of one of the bailout lines that we had worked into our master plan. Were we too ambitious? In hindsight, no, not really.
Is that something you think you want to go back and try and bite off?
Yeah, I think honestly, like if we weren't doing all the filming and Garen wouldn't have, you know, had some of his mechanical issues with his shifting. What?
Huh. I wonder what it is.
We could have totally done that ride. You know, like we had, by the time we came across Chimney Rock, like we got that battery replacement. We could have, you know, when I rolled down to Indian Valley, I still had 3 bars left.
Regardless, we were fulfilled by what we did accomplish and where we were able to ride. The Heckler opened up some new doors for us.
Yesterday was like a perfect use case for me on riding e-bikes, right? Like yesterday's ride was from Downieville, up first, up Empire Creek, over Chimney, which is just an amazing piece of scenery in itself. Like a point-to-point zone over this ridge on prehistoric trails that were used by the Miwok Indians, like way back in the day. These tribes were on these trails, and we got to ride through that. That's a point-to-point to get you to Cal Ida, which we rode down, and therein lies the use case for e-bikes for me. Like Cal Ida was like, when Greg uses words like undulation, you know you're in for a treat, and if I may say so, that would be a trail that I don't think I'd really enjoy very much on a pedal bike. You know, it's like one of those trails where like you see a corner and you're like, I'm gonna kill this corner. But if you don't have the gas or the power to get up to speed so you can rally that corner, then you're just gonna ride around on the inside and be like, I wish I had an e-bike. You know, it's just a lot of work. So yesterday was like the use case. That's the kind of trail that I want an e-bike on.
Just because we had to pull the plug early did not mean we were without some taste of serious adventure.
3 words to describe yesterday. Long, impressive, expansive. What about you, gang?
Climbing, scenery, bear.
What's the backstory on that? What happened there?
Yesterday, I don't know why I had a GoPro, but we decided to try to get some footage of just open riding footage, no one in front. So there I am riding down the hill, and I hear all this noise in the woods. I'm like, that's weird. Maybe some of my buddies are over there. Something's going on. And this bear blasts out of the woods in front of me, probably from me to you, like 4 feet. Huge one. Big old fuzzy bastard. And then starts just running down the trail. By far the closest I've ever been to a bear. It scared the shit out of me.
Runaway stuffed animal.
Hopefully we got footage of that.
Yep.
Not every e-bike outing in the Lost Sierra has to be an endeavor, though, as Greg and the Sierra Buttes crew have seen.
Oh my God.
You can catch a shuttle and then just go a little bit further than most folks will go. And so at our Yubo shop here in Quincy, we do rent the Santa Cruz e-bikes, and there's definitely a big interest in it for folks that don't necessarily want to get, you know, again, they don't want to catch a shuttle. They want to be able to ride right from the shop, right from town, and kind of come up here on, you know, on Mount Huff and see, like, you know, Mount Huff's greatest hits. And the guys at the shop, you know, have the maps and they can help steer people in the right direction. Like, hey, you should go check this out, and you should, you know, here's the new trail that they're working on. And but at the same time, like, make sure that folks know, like, how far out they can get and still make it back with some battery. Because that's, you know, a lot of people ask, like, well, how far can I go? And it's like, well, you know, are you going to be in boost the whole time? Yeah. You know, like, otherwise it just creates kind of an anxiety for people. So the more we can, you know, test things and find our limits and really kind of advertise the mountain for safety, you know, is like, once you get outside of this bubble, you should probably have a second battery, or you should turn around and go back to town. So, you know, for us, we're still trying to kind of map all that out. And as the technology keeps, like, changing, like the batteries get bigger, it's like, okay, that bubble gets a little bit bigger, and the rides are going to get even funner. And especially here on Quincy, where there's like this stacked loop system where, you know, you can just get a little further out, a little further out. And again, just like get to the trails that most folks aren't out on.
Downieville has long been considered the gem of the Sierra Buttes, at least from a mountain biking perspective. Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship have done well by this town, but now their sights are set on something much larger. To get a taste of that, we headed over to Quincy to take in the expanding trail network on Mount Huff.
So we're in Quincy, California, and we're heading up onto the Mount Huff trail system. We're pretty much going to go to the top, go right Indian Falls, do a couple fun loops out there, and then probably climb back to about halfway on the hill, and then drop out the bottom. So we'll have a variety of Mount Huff trails, super fast, smooth, tractor-built trail, and then Indian Falls we'll get into some rocky stuff, in a pretty recent burn scar, so some wide open terrain up there right now. So the Mount Huff trail system has been about 24 miles of single track for the last few years, with the main Mount Huff trail being the most popular one that everybody's shuttling. It's about 12 miles from 7,200 back down to 3,400 at Oakland Camp's the bottom of it. And the stewardship right now is in the middle of developing 38 miles of new trail on Huff, which will kind of connect all the standalone trails that are only accessed by roads right now. So it'll make a complete single track system with multiple loop options, one trail dropping off the northeast side into the little community of Taylorsville, and then 3 more main routes on the Quincy side of the hill with all the other connections. We've currently built about 8 miles of that new system, and so we'll get on some of that today as well.
Our ride out to Indian Falls was once again an adventure all its own. Working our way out to this unique zone, we took in a new terrain and vistas. A typical trip to Mount Huff means catching a shuttle to the top and dropping in on the main trail, something that is largely considered 14 miles of flow. Our ride today was quite a departure. Though not complete, this route is part of the Sierra Buttes master vision for Mount Huff.
Yeah, so with Mount Huff here in Quincy, like our first grant was for environmental work, to be able to basically try and include trails that already existed. The community had, you know, they're like social trails the community had built or used, but they weren't Forest Service system trails. So the first grant we wrote was to look at if those trails were, you know, worth keeping, or some of them need to be decommissioned because maybe they're in the wrong spot or they're too steep. So when we wrote that grant, we got funded through this source called Secure Rural Schools, which is a federal grant source. but you can't add like a lot of new trails, and you can't add to the footprint of what's already on the land. So like Mount Huff, we used a lot of existing like timber roads and skid roads that, you know, basically they built just to go get the trees, and then maybe they just decommissioned the road, but that footprint was there. So that first phase of Mount Huff really left some trails disconnected because we couldn't add a lot of new trails. And so we wrote a grant with California Off-Highway Vehicles to be able to do like a phase 2 of Mount Huff, which provides all the connectivity that the original trail system lacked. So like today we dropped down Indian Falls Ridge and we hit a dirt road and we traversed for about 8 miles to get to Tollgate Trail. Well, Mount Huff phase 2 will have like a single track that connects the two, keeps you off the roads, and it does that in a lot of cases. We're building 39 miles of new trail here on Mount Huff in the next 3 years. So it's really a connectivity project for the trail system that exists now.
For e-bikes, like we're definitely seeing more and more, you know, the shops promoting e-bikes or riding the Santa Cruz Hecklers right now. And but I think with Mount Huff being a multi-use motorized trail, currently it's told everything's completely legal to motos, e-bikes, horses, equestrians, regular mountain bikes. But Huff's got a lot to offer with those kind of disconnected sections that might be discouraging on a regular pedal bike. Jump on an e-bike and it's no big deal to, you know, buzz 8 miles on a flat traverse or regain 1,000 feet, tie back into another section of single track.
Last year, the Dixie Fire ravaged California, destroying entire communities and laying waste to 1 million acres. As it encroached upon the town of Quincy, the trails on Mount Huff proved useful in providing fire breaks and access for firefighters. This land is hardy, and so are its people.
And then this last year, in 2021, the Dixie Fire, that was huge, almost 2 million acres, burned up a lot of Huff, which is just kind of a drop in the bucket compared to what it ended up burning. Luckily on the main trail there was already a lot of edge management work done and control burns done prior to that fire. So they actually used that trail and the Mount Huff Road, which the Mount Huff Trail parallels the main Mount Huff Road for a lot of it. So they used both the trail and the road to light backfires and use it to hold fire line on, and it was pretty successful in a lot of places. But then there's other places a little further north on the hill, out around Indian Falls Ridge, where it just completely nuked, you know, and there's thousands of acres with nothing but black poles left out there. So, but as far as the trail impact goes, you know, the trail's all dirt and rock, so the trail's still there, but small vegetation's coming back really quick, you know, just a lot of kind of weeds, some wildflowers are pretty, but then a ton of brush is already coming back. And in the next few years, like, that's my biggest concern, is just keeping a handle on the brush from reclaiming the trails that we have.
Yeah, well, you know, after the Dixie Fire, it's on Mount Huff especially, it's kind of like this mosaic of trails that got, you know, really heavily burned, trails that just lightly burned, trails that go through areas that had received some kind of fuels treatment, so thinning and mastication and even some underburning of the, you know, the fuels on the ground. And so you can really like see how the fire behaved through some of those zones where, you know, they had treated it and the trees had good spacing and there wasn't a lot of fuel on the ground. You know, the fire kind of just dropped and just burned, you know, the pine needles off. And then you have areas that had a lot of ladder fuels, and which are like smaller trees that lead to bigger trees, and a lot of dead stuff on the ground. And those are the areas that really, you know, kind of just detonated, and there's not a lot left. No nutrients really in the ground. So Huff is kind of like this education piece of where recreation, you know, meets fire, and how those two can coexist, and being able to use recreational trails to you know, have control lines for fire breaks and allow for ingress and egress for firefighters to get in and out. And then for the community, if there's recreational trails, to help maintain those corridors, instead of just cutting a fire line that nobody's really going to use again and it gets overgrown, building, you know, these recreational trails for fuels breaks that also get maintained by the public, I think is a real value.
This spring, it was time to get the trails back in shape. What Greg saw at Dig Days was the return of those wanting to be involved, using trail work to get back to life as normal.
Are you seeing better involvement?
Yeah, no, I think people are eager to like get back and be able to help. And you know, like when Quincy caught on fire and Mount Huff burned, and we were all just kind of like, oh man, that's horrible. And it just, to be able to get back out on the land and like start helping maintaining these trails and volunteering, I think was good for people's mental health as much as their physical health. But being able to go out and reopen them, and then after the pandemic, it was really just like, man, it's great to be around people again, and you know, see people smiling and relating to people in person, not just virtually.
Our final day was to be spent less on exploration and more on simple fun. Rather than cram in a van for a 12-mile shuttle up the road, we'd take e-bikes instead and enjoy our trip down the new classic Mount Huff Main Trail. This masterful work delivered us nothing but high speeds and ripping times. But after being awestruck for the last couple of days, we were ready to let our inner kid loose. 14 miles and 4,000 feet of descending was just the ticket. Fires, pandemics, economic hardships, certainly there have been hurdles for the Lost Sierra. Ask Greg Williams about what's next, and the only talk is that of moving forward.
Oh, well, the future of Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship, it's like moonshots all the time. Like, what about this? What do you think about that? And so we have connected communities where we're going to connect 15 mountain towns. 13 of those are severely disadvantaged economically up here in Plumas, Sierra, and Lassen counties. So we're going to connect them with 620 miles of motorized multiple-use single track, so that you can ride a dirt bike, an e-bike, mountain bike. You know, you can hike it, ride your horse. But 618 miles of trail that'll connect these towns, and with Main Street trailheads and access to campgrounds. And you know, ideally you just bring your credit card and hop into the system. And then for us as a guide outfitter with our EBikes expeditions is to be able to help support people to get town to town, hauling their gear, or you know, making sure they have battery swaps. And I think that's the beauty of the mule, is like to be able to create a safe environment and have it mapped out for people to come out and explore these areas and get them into the towns, get them spending money, and maybe they decide they like that town so much they're going to move there and raise their family and start to attract working families back to this region. Yeah, I mean, I think it's business as usual. We've been tapped into getting grants through California off-highway vehicles, so motorized multiple-use trails, that's a big part of our funding source to create employment and keep these trails being built, keep them maintained. So I think it's like, it just fits perfectly in terms of being able to introduce this new use group and build trails that are, you know, sustainable, but also super fun for wheeled traffic. Whether you're on a mountain bike or motorcycle or an e-bike, you can go out and have a great experience. And then for us, you know, we're able to fund our work, which is super important. Yeah. So that OHV program is like one of the better programs that you can get funded through for planning and for development, for maintenance.
A trail for everyone. That is the mission of Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship. They don't care how you do it. Sierra Buttes just wants to see you out there enjoying the trails and enjoying their dirt magic. Greg first started guiding people in 1991. He's 50 years young and absolutely rips on a bike. When e-bikes landed in his lap, it seems he saw an opportunity to open more doors for more people.
Yeah. Yeah, my first time riding an e-bike was when Shimano brought some bikes up, and we were able to go out in Downieville and start to, you know, ride from town and go up the divides, and rides that most folks don't like to do, like catch shuttles. And so it was kind of a good, you know, introduction to why they're so cool. Yeah. You know, you're not having to hop into a shuttle, you can just leave right from town. And it was during right at the start of the pandemic too, so not getting in a shuttle with a bunch of people you didn't know. And yeah, I mean, my favorite kind of keeps changing because our trail crew keeps building new trails. So yeah. I'd say like my favorite new ride is like a combination of what's being built now and what's been there for a bit. Like here in Quincy, up on Mount Huff, we're always building new trails. So there's all these new connections and linkages that didn't exist before, and you're able to kind of change up your ride and keep it interesting, go different directions, see different views.
Yeah. In 72 hours, we rode an unbelievable amount of trails and found our way into regions of the Lost Sierra that few people do. Our intent with this feature was to show more riders the potential of this region and how we used an e-bike to access it. No matter the tool or toy you use, we hope you find the time and inspiration to get out and ride. There would not have been a video without the impressive efforts of 3 filmers. Brian, Caleb, and Logan. Each filmer rode every mile that we did and lugged along their 50-pound camera bags to boot. They're incredible. To see our feature on the site, complete with cool photos, go to vitalmtb.com. You can get a load of our test bike, the Santa Cruz Heckler, there as well. To learn more about Sierra Buttes Trail Stewardship and Downieville Outfitters, we have links in the description. And until next time, make sure you get out there and ride something new. We'll see you on the trails.